Educate, empower, enable, impact. Thank you for tuning in to That Will Never Work podcast, where we share inspiring information and personal experiences related to business and the entrepreneurial journey from those who are leaders in their respective field. Now, here's your host, author and business coach, Maurice.
I thank y'all very much for tuning in today. We have a very interesting topic we're going to cover today, and I have a wonderful guest to speak about it with. He himself has dealt with anxiety and depression, and he has watched his son struggle with test anxiety, and he has spent years researching the strategies, techniques, and skills available to end test anxiety. What he's learned and what he has come up with is a toolbox filled with research-proven methods for eliminating test anxiety easily, quickly, and conveniently. So he put it all together in an online training course called Ace Any Test. And this course is an all-in-one solution that gives you everything you need to turn off the fight or flight stress response when taking tests, as well as teaching you how to build your confidence and self-esteem. A lot of us deal with this, right? And so, yes, the focus right now is on tests, right? You're thinking of, hey, you know what? I got to sit behind a desk and take a test, right? I have to sit behind some type of computer and take a test. Well, there's a lot of tests in the world, right? Across the board. So it depends on how you look at it and how you view it. These tips and techniques could probably help you out in anything in life. I thank y'all very much for listening today, and I introduce to you today Craig. Craig, thank you very much for coming on the show.
Maurice, I really appreciate it. I thank you for the invitation to be on your show. I've been looking forward to it for a few weeks. And you're right. There's more than just, when we think of a test, we think of maybe being back in school. Mm-hmm. Back in the day, it was just, pencils and filling in little forms. Now it's all on computers and things. But, there's other types of tests, like you just said. I think the most obvious would be maybe for an actor or a musician doing an audition, mm-hmm. But it's also a job interview and public speaking. And I think a lot of it comes down to just fear of failure, mm-hmm. and fear of being judged.
Right.
More than likely, in terms of, the people I've worked with one-on-one and just talking with people, oftentimes there's an experience in the past. You didn't do well on a test. Maybe you got in trouble with parents. Maybe you didn't, got an F in the class, or just didn't do very well in the class, or got an F on the test. And it's hard. It's humiliating. It's frustrating. It's disappointing, especially when maybe you're getting in trouble at home. Mm-hmm. And so it kind of puts on that armor. Mm-hmm. And now every time, because it seems dangerous now.
Right.
Just like any dangerous thing, just, to have a wild example, but, a rattlesnake in a trail. We know that's dangerous because, but now we've associated danger with taking a test because we've had this experience that didn't go very well. And the big problem with anxiety or depression or anger or any, more of the negative emotions, mm-hmm. when you practice, you get better at. We know this from learning a musical instrument, if you play guitar or piano or something, or dance or martial arts, mm-hmm. or riding a bicycle, learning to walk. What you practice, you get better at. Mm-hmm. But what if you're practicing fear? What if you're practicing anxiety? What if you're practicing depression or anger? Mm-hmm. You can literally wire that into your brain. You can literally wire that into your nervous system, mm-hmm. so that certain triggers in your external environment will cause that fight or flight response. The famous ones are flight. You're running away. Mm-hmm. Fight. You're going to fight your way out of the situation. But there's also freeze and faint. And a lot of people find the freeze and faint one. Obviously, you're not going to fight your way out of a test. You're not going to run away from it either. Mm-hmm. And so your real two options are freeze and faint. Mm-hmm. And that's when you get that your mind goes blank. And even though you studied for weeks and weeks, the material backwards and forwards. I've heard people, I do the practice tests online and I ace them every time. But then when I actually go to the testing site, or you have to do it on computer at home or something, you just freeze. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Because there's a certain aspect to that stress response, the whole possum playing dead thing. Mm-hmm. It's like, well, if I play dead, then, the danger will go by me. Mm-hmm. Unfortunately, if it's a test, obviously that's a whole different scenario, and it's an imaginary threat. The test in and of itself is not going to harm you,
Mm-hmm.
uh, you're physically in any way, and so it's just this past experience potentially that is kind of wired you to be defensive and fearful and anxious around taking a test. Or again, maybe it's a job interview,
Mm-hmm.
or giving a presentation at the big meeting, or if you're starting a business, you have to talk to maybe investors. You have to even hire people. Maybe you're on the other side of the desk
Mm-hmm.
and you're the one
Mm-hmm.
hiring people, and you get nervous about what are you going to say? Am I going to hire the right person? And it's just a natural response. Unfortunately, it's a natural response to kind of an extraordinary situation that doesn't require you to armor yourself like that,
Mm-hmm.
and it just kind of shuts you down, and you can't think straight. You can't, and therefore you can't work at your best.
So one of the things that you had mentioned that I think is very interesting is the association with something that could possibly be external.
Mm.
So the, hey, if I do this, this will happen. If I do that, that will happen. And a lot of times we don't understand the real relationship of that past experience and how it does affect us in moving forward. So
Yeah.
I know for myself, taking the test, I felt good about it because if I knew the information, I would get an A and I would be praised for it.
Yeah.
Then there were some people that, and I was pretty decent at taking tests. I was pretty decent at memorizing information. But
Yeah.
then I had some classmates who were not so great, and I could see the anxiety across their faces. Even today, I could see my children, right, taking tests. One of my kids are not, one of my children are not very good at taking tests, and the anxiety, and they're trying to study all night and things like that. I'm like, hey, pull it back a little bit. Like you're not competing against the other person to get an A. You're just, that's something inside of you that, hey, you want to do great. Well, stop pushing yourself so hard. So there's so many other pieces to this part of this anxiety that we have to analyze to say, hey, you know what? It's not going to be that bad. It's not going to, as you stated, it's not going to hurt us physically, right?
Yeah.
But it can hurt us emotionally and mentally in the long term, which will affect our productivity even maybe even longer than that.
Yeah, yeah, and it's and of course there's all sorts of different learning styles. People study in different ways,
Right.
and have visual, auditory, kinesthetic kind of learning styles. But in terms of getting into the situation that shuts you down, the big issue is that the mind can't tell the difference between what's real and what's imagined.
Mm-hmm.
And so this is most noticeable when somebody's having a nightmare in the middle of the night. And it could be the craziest, most ridiculous, the stupidest dream, like a gigantic cheeseburgers chasing out on the street throwing coconuts at you. It's ridiculous. It's not going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
And yet your body thinks it's happening and it will defend itself. It's sort of, your mind has that shoot first, ask questions later mentality. And even in deep sleep, having this crazy dream, the Wizard of Oz trees throwing apples at you or something, it's ridiculous. It's not going to happen. But your mind can't quite figure out whether that's real or not.
Right.
It's going to, your subconscious mind is for you.
Mm-hmm.
It's running your immune system and your digestive system and growing our hair and fingernails and all that stuff, or growing from a baby to an adult. All of this stuff's happening automatically. You don't have to think about it.
Mm-hmm.
The subconscious mind's holding on to our habits, like walking and tying our shoes and all these different habits, riding a bicycle, driving a car. But it's also there to keep us safe and protected. That's its main job.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the ways it does that is by holding on to the hurt and the pain that we've experienced in the past. It doesn't want to experience it again.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, if you've experienced trauma growing up, if there's been fear or anger, of course, that's going to be in the files. But sometimes it's, the humiliation or the embarrassment,
Mm-hmm.
or you didn't do well on a test and you felt bad about yourself for a while. And that's going to be one of the files. So anything that looks like one of those files, if it gets triggered, it's going to turn on that defense mechanism.
Mm-hmm.
And the way it warns you that there's danger is those feeling states. So if someone pulls a fire alarm in a building, the sirens go off, the lights go off, and it's trying to warn everybody in that building that there's danger. You need to get to safety now. Well, we also have a warning system, but instead of sirens and lights, we have feeling states. The feeling state of anxiety, feeling state of fear, feeling state of anger, of worry, overwhelm. These are signals your body is giving you that there is danger. Unfortunately, is it real? Is it imagined? You don't know, and until you kind of assess the situation. And so that's the subconscious mind. It's this emotionalized mind that's trying to keep you safe. It's for survival, which doesn't necessarily mean your happiness or success. It just wants you alive and protected. So that's subconscious mind running a lot of this stuff unconsciously, obviously, but it's there to protect you. Now, the conscious mind, that's the logical mind, the analytical mind, the mind that sets up your goals, the plans to achieve your goal, the plan for your day, the plan for your week, your 5-year plan, the willpower to go after those goals. That's your conscious mind. But what neuroscience says is that conscious mind only makes up 5% of mind. Subconscious mind makes up 95% of mind. So whenever there's conflict between the logical mind and the emotional mind wins every time. So you can logically be talking to yourself on the way to the test or the job interview or the presentation and to say, oh, this is no big deal. I know all these people in the room, or I've studied so hard. I know this material backwards and forwards. Logically, that makes sense. But emotionally, you're thinking, okay, the last time I took, or not even last time, 20 years ago when I took a test back in the 6th grade or back in junior high or something, it didn't go very well. And emotionally, you're going to start protecting yourself, even though logically you can analyze the situation. There's no danger. It's you've studied, you know this material. But emotionally, that's what's going to take over. And, one of the aspects you were talking a little bit earlier, it could just be danger that we're picking up in the external world that's not even danger. So it's sort of like one of the examples I use when I work with people one-on-one is it's maybe like when somebody was 12 years old, they were in a car accident with a red pickup truck, like a head-on collision, a really bad accident. And now 30 years later, they don't remember the accident anymore.
Right.
They're driving down the street and they're going from one side of town to the other, and it's a clear drive. It couldn't have been a better drive. Great music playing, windows, a beautiful day. But when they get to their destination, they're stressed. They're just gripping onto the steering wheel, and they're really upset, and they don't know why. And it's maybe because out of their peripheral vision, they saw a red pickup truck parked in a parking lot. That was enough to okay, it's not head on. It's over here, parked in a parking lot. But the last time we encountered a red pickup truck didn't go very well. So it's dangerous. And so we'll start turning on the fight or flight stress response automatically. Again, this is all happening unconsciously. And so another big issue with this is, again, what you practice, you get better at. What is strongest within your mind is what you do over and over again. Again, we know this from, learning a musical instrument or learning a foreign language or learning dance or martial arts or something. Learning to ride a bicycle, learning to drive a car, learning to walk. Watch a child learn to walk. It's very clunky until it kind of all gets wired into the brain, and then now we don't have to think about it. We can walk across the room, get a drink of water without having to think about it. So a lot of this work is just the practice of turning off the stress responses. Okay, with you, Maurice, I want to show people a really quick exercise that you can do yourself. And this is so simple. This is so easy. That you can show your kids how to do this later on today. This is how simple this is. Now, caveat is, if you're driving a car, of course, just keep driving your car, concentrate on driving. If you're watching the kids around the swimming pool, or you're cooking with fire or whatever, just concentrate on what you need to concentrate. If there's something that needs your full attention and concentration and focus, do that. Come back to this clock where we are in the interview. Is going to be a quick 5-minute little thing. Clock where we are and come back to this, listen to the replay. But this is a great little exercise developed by Dr. Richard Nongard, a psychotherapist, as well as a hypnotherapist.
Okay.
And called, very simply, 3, 2, 1, reset. And what this exercise is going to do is it's going to literally reset your nervous system and change chemistry. And it's really simple. 3 parts is we're going to take 3 slow, easy, gentle breaths. This is a big regulator of your nervous system, the breath, because when we're stressed, we upper chest breathe.
Mm-hmm.
And if you've ever seen a diagram of your lungs, first off, your lungs are huge. If you feel where your rib cage is, again, not if you're driving, keep your hands on the wheel, but
Right.
like 2 inches from your hip bones, your lungs are huge. But when you stress, when you're in stress, you just breathe into the top part of your lung. So you're only using about 1/3 of your lung, or not even that, just the top part of your lung. And that's because we tighten our stomach muscles when we're stressed. We're waiting for that 1-2 punch. The rib cage is for the heart and the lungs. What's protecting the vital organs of your abdomen are the muscles, so they'll tighten. And therefore, you can't flatten out your diaphragm. You can't get air into your lungs. The brain takes 20% of the oxygen you breathe in. And so as the blood is flowing around the body, bringing oxygen here, I'm going to reach out of frame here real quick because I didn't think I was going to do this, but since we're doing this exercise, I want to have some visual displays. So once the video is up, people can see this. But when blood's flowing around the body, it's delivering oxygen to the cells of your body and the muscles and the tissues. But it's also picking up carbon dioxide and gases and toxins, and you exhale all that stuff out, breathe in the oxygen. And then when you breathe the oxygen in the lungs, it merges with the blood, and then it flows around your body and just does this 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. In the top part of your lungs, about half a cup of blood is flowing through the top part of your lungs every minute. But the bottom of your lungs, 1 liter of blood. And so just as a visual for when people watching the video, this is a liter of Gatorade. So if you're just listening to this, imagine what a liter of Gatorade is at the grocery store. 20% of this is going directly to your brain. So this is half a cup. And if you can imagine just a measuring cup at home and what half a cup would look like next to a liter bottle, this is when you're stress breathing. This is when you can breathe fully into the bottom of your lungs, 60 of these an hour, 60 liters an hour, but only if you're breathing deeply. So you can see just that in and of itself will help calm the nervous system down. So deep breathing. Also, we have the vagus nerve that comes out of the back of our head. And when we're in stress, we're turning on the sympathetic nervous system. When we're relaxed and all the systems of our body, immune system, digestive system, are getting the power back and the blood supply and the nutrients that we need to run at optimum levels, that's the parasympathetic nervous system, the relaxation response. Sympathetic, stress response; parasympathetic, relaxation response. We have this vagus nerve, comes out of the back of our head, and vagus is Latin for wanderer, attaches to the eyes, to the ears, muscles of your jaw, goes past your vocal cords, attaches to your lungs, to your heart, and to your gut, goes all over the place. Vagus nerve is a big part of that parasympathetic nervous system. It's attached to your lungs. So by breathing slowly, easily, and gently and deeply, you activate the vagus nerve. Therefore, you stimulate the parasympathetic nervous system. You stimulate the vagus nerve, and therefore you activate the parasympathetic nervous system, to twist the words around. And so this isn't hard. This is really, really simple. And so the first part of 3, 2, 1 reset is 3 slow, gentle breaths, breathing deeply into your abdomen, blow up the belly. And I know, especially as we want to look at the high school reunion, we want to look at the wedding, we want to fit better in our pants, but just, you got to relax those muscles of your abdomen, breathe in your abdomen, feel air into your bottom of your lungs. And then we're going to create, the 2 is bilateral stimulation. And when you're panicked, when you're anxious, you're lighting up the right side of the brain. And, it just doesn't turn on. It needs blood supply, needs fuel, needs energy to light up. So it vacuums it away from these other parts of the brain. And these other parts of the brain go dark, they go quiet. And all the energy gets sucked up over to the panic and the fear and the anxiety that's here in the right side of the brain. So how do you undo that? You just light up other parts of the brain. And a real easy way to do that is just moving your body. And right side of the brain controls left side of the body. Left side of the brain controls right side of the body. And so here's my little stress ball, squeezy ball. Back. So for the video, you can see it. But for the auditory audience, those just listening, I'm going to make a cross, make a T with my arms outstretched. And then I'm going to pass this little ball, whether it's a tennis ball, racquetball, whatever, in front of me to the other hand, and then make a cross again. And this is bilateral stimulation. And by moving my body like that, I have to operate in other parts of my brain. I need energy, I need oxygen, I need blood supply. So it vacuums it away from that anxiety. If back in school, you remember maybe a meeting at work, you saw somebody drumming on their knees, you know, they're not hyper, they're not ADHD, they're nervous. And they're self-soothing themselves by bilateral stimulation, left, right, left, right, left, right. Walking, left foot, left foot, right. That's bilateral stimulation. That's why walking feels so good. So what we're going to do is we're going to grab our shoulders and we're going to make this X on our chest. And obviously this is a hug. And we're pat our brains. And what we're going to do is, whether you're, you know, just kind of squeezing your shoulders, or you're giving yourself a bear hug, or doing the havening technique, which is rubbing your hands up and down your arms, from your wrists, your shoulders, this feels good. And you are now creating the hormone GABA. The hormone GABA dissipates all the adrenaline and cortisol in your brain, those stress hormones. And your brain is now creating oxytocin, serotonin, and the dopamine, the feel-good chemicals. And then you're going to spend 1 minute thinking about somebody you care for. You're going to light up the visual part of it. Not only do you feel kinesthetically with your body, you physically feel this hug, which is sending signals through your nerves back up to your brain to say, hey, you feel good. This is nurturing, loving, healing touch. And now you're thinking of somebody you want to give a hug to, a good friend. It could be a pet, a dog, a cat, family member. It could be somebody who's no longer with us, your grandmother, your father, somebody you've never met before, you know, Mother Teresa, Gandhi, Martin Luther King, you know, people who you admire, who inspire you. The mind can't tell the difference between what's real and what's imagined. So even though that person isn't there with you in that room, feeling this hug and imagining that person is literally going to change your brain chemistry and turn up oxytocin, serotonin, and dopamine. So 3, 2, on reset. Again, 3 slow, gentle breaths in. And then you're going to grab your shoulders and you're going to start sending those signals up into your brain to move into a more joyful, healthy, you know, loving feeling state. Think of somebody you want to give a hug to, even if it's a dog, a pet, a cat. Then, you know, just sit for 5 minutes. If you just did that for 5 minutes, you will reset your nervous system and you will feel better. And that's a big part of this, just feeling good.
Right.
And you will walk into whatever situation, even if it's just like a meeting at work, you're sit in your car before you walk into the meeting with the investors or the board of directors or the job interview, or you're interviewing somebody. You know, set yourself up for success. And right now, when we're recording this, the Olympics are happening. I guarantee you, every single person, whether they're doing a solo event like gymnastics, or they're in a race like a running race or swimming or something, I guarantee you, every single athlete is putting themselves in state before they walk out onto the event. Any professional athlete, any musician, but also, why not do that for business? If you have to give a presentation, you know, you have to give a speech, you know, you got tapped to give the keynote speech at the big conference, you know, in a couple months. Put yourself in state before you walk out on stage. Just don't like, oh my, I don't know what's going to happen. I'm so nervous. Don't walk out like that.
Right.
Walk,
right.
You know, confident. You're not confident? Pretend you're confident, and put yourself in a state. Reset yourself. And I know it's goofy to like hug yourself and think of something, but this is the work. This is what you have to do. Do it privately. You don't have to do it in front of a bunch of people. Do it imagine doing that before you walked into work.
Right.
You know, imagine doing that before you did a speech. Go to the bathroom, lock the door at your office, sit in your car. Imagine having a really bad day. As you know, sometimes it's challenging running a business or getting a business even going. And so sit in your car before you walk back into your home. You know, your family will appreciate it. You know, just reset yourself, because what happens is you reset your reticular activating system, a part of the brain. Its main job is to look for danger, always on, even when you're sleeping. That's why you hear the baby coughing and crying in the next room, or you smell smoke and you wake up, or you hear the back door open at 2:00 in the morning and you wake up. You're too hot, cold, you have to go to the bathroom, you wake up. That's your reticular activating system. Or you see that car going towards a red light in your peripheral vision, you slam on the brakes, you even think about it, you just did it. That's your reticular activating system. But its secondary task is to solve problems and find solutions. So there's that thing when you're thinking about buying a new car, you're thinking about, thinking about buying a Toyota Prius because gas prices are so high. And now you see Toyota Priuses everywhere. They're in every parking lot, they're driving down the street. They were there yesterday and the day before. You just didn't notice them because you weren't thinking about them. But now needing a solution to getting a new car, a Toyota Prius. But now you're not thinking about, you don't see the Kias or the BMWs or the Dodge Caravans or the Teslas. You're just seeing Priuses everywhere. That's where it's like a Prius, festival in town. It's that thing when your day goes from bad to worse, is because you focused your reticular activating system just to look for problems. And so what are you going to see problems? And here's the big issue with that. And I know we're running up against time, so I'll make this quick. We're being inundated through our five senses, what we see, hear, taste, touch, smell. We're being inundated with 11 million bits of information per second. The light, the color, the temperature, and often things we don't notice unless it's too hot or too cold or it's too loud, like the air conditioner is making a rattling noise. Now we hear the air conditioner or, planes flying low overhead or something. Things we just don't hear unless it becomes conscious in our awareness. And the issue with that is we're only cognizant of 50 bits, 11 million. So we have to filter out a lot of stuff. We're cognizant of 50 bits out of that 11 million per second. So if you're just start thinking about problems and just, in your life and then in business and in the world, in general, you're going to find a lot of problems, but you're ignoring all the good stuff. So what if you started your day with some sort of exercise, and it doesn't have to be 3, 2, 1 reset, but what if you just set your day up to feel good, even if it's just thinking of somebody you care for and sending them the energy, the vibration, whatever you want to call it, of love and joy and happiness to another person. And now you're rewiring your brain and you're setting yourself up to instead of looking for problems, now you're looking for more things to be joyful about, more things to be happy about, things to be grateful about. That's why writing a gratitude journal is so important. It has you look for more things to be grateful about. And if your day goes sideways, as it sometimes does in business, reset yourself. Do it again and again and again. Just do it over and over again. And this is really important. I highly recommend a documentary on Tony Robbins. A lot of you probably Robbins is. And there's a documentary that came out about him. I think it's on Netflix called I Am Not Your Guru. And it focuses on him through one of those week-long seminars he does at Arena, 10,000 people. But what's fascinating about it is, one, in the morning, you see him doing his routine. He's doing the cold plunge. He's jumping on a little trampoline to awaken his adrenal glands. He's doing his meditation work that's good for him. Then he goes to work. Then he goes to the event center, the arena. And then he's talking to the backstage people and all that. But before he goes out on stage, he puts himself in state. This guy's been doing this work for 40 years, since the early 1980s. And he's still not only doing his meditation work and his physical work, the cold plunge and all that, but he's still putting himself in state, just like an athlete or a musician before walking out on into a stadium, putting himself in state before he walks out on the stage. And to him, he pumps his fists in the air, he turns around, he just walks on stage. Everybody has their, whether it's Beyonce or Bruce Springsteen or Taylor Swift or whatever, everybody has their own way of getting themselves in state.
Right.
And so do that for work, whether it's just a quote unquote plain day at work, or if you got a big meeting with investors or the board of the directors or the bank, or you got to give the presentation at the conference or whatever, put yourself in, or you're walking back home, back into your house, put yourself in state. Who do you need to be? And so that's, and again, what we started off with, what was, a while ago, is what you practice, you get better at.
Right.
So just practice, whatever works best for you to keep yourself in a state of mind that is focusing on your peak performance and peak potential. And it's just, as an entrepreneur, it's hard. It's 24/7.
Right.
You gotta watch it. Otherwise you might, if you find yourself in that ditch, got to get yourself out, otherwise.
Craig, I appreciate, everything you've provided. There's a lot of things that you mentioned there, because a lot of times we don't take time to just, one, be quiet, to soothe ourselves. We don't take the opportunity to get ourselves ready for the moment in whatever way for that moment calls for. I know for myself, I sit here and make funny faces to the screen. I sit here and talk to myself in the microphone. I have this little thing where I bounce, just whatever it might be, just to relax myself. But I thank you for coming on. Where can they reach you to find other tools and techniques, in order for them to find their ritual or whatever it is for them to get over to the next level?
Yeah, probably the best, just as you introduced me, Ace Any Test is probably the best place to find me. Just aceanytest.com, and you can find my email from there. I am a hypnotherapist, and I work with people with, early childhood trauma and fears and phobias, and also by building confidence and joy and happiness in life. So I also work with them, and that's called Arizona Integrative Hypnotherapy. I'm here in Flagstaff, Arizona. So if you just Googled Flagstaff hypnosis, you'd find me at Arizona Integrative Hypnotherapy or aceanytest.com.
Cool. Craig, again, I thank you very much. But before I let you go, I got to ask you the question I ask everybody, my would you rather question, right? So, Craig, would you rather choose 3 doors or a fork in the road?
I always say fork in the road would be better, because at least you have a sense of what the trail is going to look like, at least for a little bit.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And, there's always that big mystery behind the 3 doors. So I think I'm picking fork in the road.
You're picking a fork in the road? Okay.
Yeah,
that's cool. That's cool. Again, some people have looked at the ground, take a look at the road less traveled. Some people think that there's another fork at the end of that fork and more forks, so more opportunities they feel as though. So, I thank you very much for, explaining why you would have chosen a fork in the road, There's no science to it. There's no right or wrong answer. It's just how you feel as an individual. And maybe there might be anybody that's out there that might be able to resonate with how you responded.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's, and then tomorrow I'll probably pick the other way.
And, that's fine, because we all have choices, right? It's never, so.
It's just like how you feeling about the day too. It's like, I'm feeling lucky. I'll pick door number 2. I don't know.
Right.
I don't know.
So yeah, but Craig, thank you very much for coming on the show.
Yeah, Maurice, I really appreciate it. We had no idea what we were going to talk about, and it was a really fun conversation. So I appreciate your invitation.
Sure, no problem. And I thank y'all very much for listening to That Will Never Work podcast. And of course, all the information will be in the show notes. And I will talk to y'all a little later.
Thanks for listening. Find us on social media at Chisholm Group LLC and check back weekly for new episodes. Until next time, that will never work, or will it?